Welcome to Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Welcome, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. Welcome to Everything Co-op. This morning, I had the pleasure of talking with Mr. Gary Hampton. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning, Vernon. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing excellent. Happy to be here.
Good. And by the way, where are you this morning? What part of the world?
I am in Minneapolis this morning. I'm a transplant from West Virginia, but I now reside in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Well, I'm in D.C. right now, and I grew up in Bluefield, West Virginia. So, hey, bro, homeboy.
Hello, fellow mountaineer.
Yes. Great place to grow up and be from. Okay. Today, we're going to talk about, you are a member, matter of fact, you're the vice chair of ACE, and ACE is the Association of Cooperative Educators. But before we do that, I'd like to know, how did you get into this work? What's your story? How do you get into ACE and co-ops?
I'll start with, I got into co-ops through several individuals back home in West Virginia, Mabry Davis and Brandon Nida, through what was Co-op Appalachia. Went to some Southern Reparation Loan Fund trainings and convenings, and realized, like, I can do this, I can support this, and this is a viable option to the current economic systems taking place to help communities. And so that's how I really got involved with co-ops and continue to stay involved. And then that led me on to becoming more involved in the co-op ecosystem, really getting the bug and joining into other organizations and connecting with other organizations. And I was asked while at the Impact Conference about joining the board of ACE. And at that point, I was pretty much brought into ACE and voted in vice chair last year in Vancouver, British Columbia at the last ACE Institute.
So when you mentioned the Impact Conference, that's the NCBA, the National Cooperative Business Association's annual conference here in D.C.
Yes, correct. That conference.
Okay. Let's go back to your formal schooling. Did you learn anything about co-ops in your education?
No, not at all. There was no mentioning of co-ops. I was never familiar with what a co-op was until about 2008, when I was working as Deputy Director of Small Business Development in the state of West Virginia. And that wasn't one of the models, small business models, that was really touted or seemed to gain any interest in the short period that I was there. But it's a challenge that we don't get that. And it's not taught alongside the traditional business models that we see and hear about every day.
So what kind of education do you have?
I have a background in bachelor's in management information systems from Marshall University. And then I have a few different certifications, and then just the informal education of experience, of being given opportunity to learn on the job, take risks. And, I think those are the most valuable components outside, because, management information systems, I was in the tech sector for 20 plus years, and that those things do transfer over into this work, but we just didn't get that in college, and not many colleges today really touch on it. There's some out there, but there's not enough of the conversation around co-ops and their viability and their resiliency as a viable business and economic and community development model.
So when you talk about the other economic system, you're talking about the capitalistic model. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so when I speak to the capitalistic model, I mean, it's very much about the bottom line for the organization, whereas co-ops really have more of a triple bottom line opportunity because of their concern for community and really to address issues where the standard status quo systems fail us and fail many communities, both rural and urban communities.
So what is the triple bottom line? I got the bottom line because I got my MBA, and all decisions were made on what's the greatest return on investment for the shareholder. It was like you did all your analysis down to look at, of all of your options, which one gives the shareholder the greatest return. So it was profit. That was the number one thing that decisions were made on. But when you say triple bottom line, what are you talking about?
Yeah, so you're thinking about it expands beyond like what we usually look at as your basic business metrics. It includes your contributions to the social well-being of your community, the environment, and also building a more just economy. And so in that is, there's still that somewhat of a capitalistic piece, but it's really about the people, the planet, and prosperity. So there's these opportunities to take your business and make your business more about just profit, and really take into concern everything around you and the ecosystems and the communities that you connect with. So it really goes beyond profit.
You've just said what I believe, and that is that the co-op model, people come first, or you call it social well-being. The planet comes second, you call it environment, and then profit. Now, and that's where you say, well, capitalism is still there because you have to make a profit. You can't stay in business without making a profit, but that's not the be all and end all in the co-op world, where it is too often in the capitalistic model and capitalistic organizations. Profit becomes the thing to go after, and that causes short-term decision making and decision making that is perhaps against the people, particularly the people that work there, and against particularly the people in the community, and it could be against the environment. So that, to me, is the biggest difference and the reasons I like co-op. And I also did not get anything about co-ops in my formal education. 2 master's degrees and an undergrad, but I was in math and chemistry undergrad. You were over there in the computer world. So in that whole STEM world, you don't get a lot about people in business, but I did not get anything about this co-op model. So you said there were 2 people that you met that told you about this model and that kind of turned you on to it. Is there anything particular that they said that caused you to gravitate toward this co-op model?
It wasn't necessarily that they said it was just the opportunity of being asked to take this journey to Asheville, North Carolina, and to be in the presence of individuals like Ed, and then
would that be Ed Whitfield?
Yes, Ed Whitfield.
Oh, he's a great bro.
Yeah, Ed Whitfield, Jessica.
You talking about Dr. Jessica Gordon Nimhard?
Yes, Dr. Jessica Gordon Nimhard.
Those 2 would do it right there.
Okay. Yeah, and then there was just, it was just the energy and the realness of the space, and then being able to get out into the community and observe how individuals were moving and living cooperatively down in Asheville, and how they were taking care of their housing needs, food needs, community social needs, and really working together. And so it was, it was like this is that piece. is how can I get myself and bring my talents and skills into this and really support this movement and really dive into it. And then just having individuals around that, we're seeking community and looking for additional opportunities I was all in. And I felt like I had a lot from my past work and professional experiences to contribute.
Fantastic. Mine was a little bit different. I had a property management business here in Washington, D.C., and so I was managing housing co-ops, and that took me to the local group, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia housing co-ops. And then from there, I went to the national, and there were two senior citizens at the time, older white gentlemen, Roger Wilcox and Herb Fisher. Roger died 3 years ago at 97, and Herb is probably in his 90s now. But they set me down at their knee and taught me about co-ops and the benefits of co-ops, and they had created co-ops. Roger had created affordable housing co-ops all over the U.S. But listen, everybody, we're going to take our first break, and Gary, when we come back, I want to get into this ACE, which you're the vice chair, which you talked a little bit about. Thank you so much for telling us about how you got into co-ops. We'll be right back. Please don't touch that dial. Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes, and the program is Everything Cooperative. And we have Mr. Gary Hampton on with us this morning. Gary, you had mentioned that you're the vice chair of ACE. What is ACE?
ACE is the Association of Cooperative Educators, and it was started back and incorporated back in 1969 and focuses on bringing individuals together through the ACE Institute around cooperative development, cooperative education, and knowledge mobilization is the way I really like to look at it.
Knowledge mobilization?
Yes.
How do you mobilize knowledge?
I mean, just looking at it as we're doing now, we're talking, we're sharing, we're speaking about co-ops, is taking knowledge or information and just putting it into action, whether you're sharing it, whether you're applying it, different things of that nature, things that actually put knowledge into a verbal context so that it's moving and transferring between people, between mediums, and really sharing whatever the concept, subject, or information is about. And really more so in an applied approach. So you're taking the information and data and content and, putting it to work. So you're kind of mobilizing it.
Okay. Who are the members of ACE? Or who do you want to be members?
Well, the members of ACE are constitute organizations, individuals, educators. So is really everybody that's out there can be and should be members of ACE for a number of reasons. Because if you're working in this space, then as a developer, you're training people up, you're educating, you're connecting with community. As educators, you can bring value and add value as doing research projects or actually helping bring it into your campuses and institutions. So anybody that's involved in educating and training up cooperative members and building community has a place here with us with ACE.
So you have an ACE Institute.
Yes.
What is it? I think of an institute as somewhere where people go to learn things, but
yes, and that's what it becomes. It's an annual conference that's in North America. It's usually held in Puerto Rico, Canada, or the United States, and it brings together and promotes cooperative education and trainings to all cooperators, whether it's educators, leaders, developers, or learners. Even a place for co-op interested. So it's a unique and unique learning and professional development opportunity for cooperators from different boundaries, across national boundaries, across various cooperative sectors, which can be applicable to any of the traditional sectors that we see. And it's been around since around 1952, and it's the one thing that is at the heart of ACE. It's what ACE is about, is really about bringing individuals and connecting individuals.
So when you talk about any sector across geographical boundaries, and just for everybody out there, the four sectors that I have are if the co-op is owned and controlled by its members, it's called a worker co-op. It's owned and controlled by the employees. If the co-op is owned and controlled by the people that uses the products or services, it's called a consumer co-op. And you got housing co-ops, credit unions, rural electric co-ops. And then you've got a couple co-ops that are like businesses. It's a purchasing co-op, and that's where a group of people or companies come together, form a business that purchases what they need. Farmers do this a lot. People in agriculture will form a purchasing co-op to buy their seed or fertilizers or whatever they might need. So they have this group of people that become experts in working with the vendors, and they get a better product at a lower price because they also buy in volume. And then you have a marketing co-op, and sometimes that's called a producer co-op, and that's just a group of people or businesses come together, form a business to market the products. So you may have a farmer in St. Paul, Minnesota, that sells their milk in California or New York through a marketing co-op where they couldn't do that individually, and that company may also take that milk and make butter or cottage cheese or do other things with. That's why it's called a producer co-op. So those are your four basic types. And now there's also coming up platform co-ops. That's a whole nother conversation. So for ACE, it could be any of these sectors you're saying can come and join in talking about how we can educate each other and the public about the co-op model. Is that what I got?
Yes. Yes, and I like to look at, that coming together. We talk about principles and whatnot is cooperation among cooperators, principle 6, and then 7 is concern for community. And so as you're doing this work, is what is that foundational piece that brings awareness, understanding, and knowledge and skill development to build co-ops is education. So it's really founded around those three principles. Really have a hold in what ACE is and what ACE can become, as well as we continue to build out the educational component of the cooperative ecosystem.
Well, you didn't name you talked about the fifth principle, but not naming it as P5. P5 was the main reason that grabbed me about co-ops, because I watched these mostly elderly black women run these big businesses, these housing co-ops. Sometimes they didn't have a high school degree, or most they had a high school degree, and they made very, very sound decisions because they got the education that they needed. That was the fifth principle. That's the first thing that attracted me to co-ops, was the education that happens for everyday people. And then, like you said, the sixth principle is cooperation among co-ops, and the seventh one is concern for the community. Then that all gets to be very interesting. The second one, the fifth principle is what I liked. And then I went to the first principle. If it's a co-op, then it's open to everybody and anybody, regardless of race or gender or religion or political persuasion. So it's just open to everybody. And of course, the second one is democratically controlled, one member, one vote. So I love the principles and the values of cooperation. And I assume you all teach that or talk about that at the Institute.
Yeah, it comes out into different workshops. There's there's that understanding that you're there. You already understand those Rochdale principles, but then as those different elements will come out during the workshops, the presentations, the panels, and so those are at the heart of it as we speak to co-ops. So they are touched upon as we execute and move through the institute.
Okay, talking about the different panels and discussions, what is this ears to the ground, eyes to the sky, lessons from the land and young QTBOP cooperative leaders? What is that session about?
That session, and I apologize, I don't have the full descriptions here in front of me, but that session is speaking to the inclusiveness of the co-op ecosystem, that all people are involved in, and looking at it through the lens of LGBT and queer individuals.
Okay. And building a resilient worker cooperative ecosystem in Madison, Wisconsin. I'd like to be in that one. What is that going to be about?
So that's going to be focusing on, it'll be a group of individuals, some individuals from AdWork, some individuals that work with the UW Center for Cooperatives, and they're going to be talking about their ecosystem, how they work together, and what they're doing in building out their ecosystem. So they have a interesting, unique story, in my opinion, because they're also working with municipalities. So it's not just inside of the co-op ecosystem; it's actually expanding and connecting to other agencies and agents that can help move, fund, and support the work.
So move, fund. So it's supporting it through capital, getting capital through government agencies, local and federal.
Yeah. So with the group in Madison, they have opportunity where there's a municipal loan fund and funding behind the co-op ecosystem as well.
I think Madison was the government, this may have been 3 or 4 years ago, decided to put up $5 million, $1 million a year for 5 years to help create co-ops. In New York, it was $2.5 million. Or their legislation was every year, but for about 3 years, it was about $2.5 million in New York City to help fund co-ops. And different cities are doing that now, which is extremely helpful. So what is this co-op proposal for a workshop on co-op education challenges for developing co-ops within incarcerated and previously incarcerated people? That sounds exciting to me.
Yeah, so again, I have to come back. That's something that Jessica, that's part of her work, part of her research in Puerto Rico, doing it, and I had the opportunity to learn some about that in Vegas when I connected with her. But it's about co-ops in prison, how they use co-ops as a way to build opportunities, create opportunities.
Let's talk a little bit more about this on the other side of the break. We're going to take our second break now. I'm extremely interested in it. Now that you say Dr. Jessica Nimhart is going to be doing that, I really would like to be there or be a part of it. That's excellent. Thank you. We'll be right back. Please don't touch that dial.
News Talk 1450 WOL AM, where information is power.
Right now at Wendy's, when you buy either Dave's Single, Spicy Chicken Sandwich, Medium Frosty, or 10-piece nuggets, you can get another for just $1. Your dollar never tasted so good. So it's obvious what everyone will get, right?
Definitely nugs
Spicy
and
chicken
a Frosty.
sandwich,
Dave's Single and a Frosty for
Frosty
me.
and a Frosty.
Okay, who said Frosty and a Frosty? Pick your obvious choice. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's buy one, get one for $1.
Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. U.S. Wendy's, valid for item of equal or lesser value. Cannot be combined in a combo or any other offer.
Thank you for calling Vast National Bank. How may I transfer you?
Yeah. Oh, wait. Did you just say transfer?
No, I said help. How may I help you?
Okay. Never mind. I have a question about my account.
Okay. Let me transfer you to accounts.
Hey, what?
Don't let a big bank make you feel small. How about a community bank? Shake your phone to find yours or learn more at banklocally.org.
To learn more.
Zero DJ Washington, 95.9 WMMJ HD3 Bethesda, WKYS HD3 Washington, WPRS HD3 Waldorf, and worldwide at WOLDCnews.com.
The views and opinions of the following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio 1 Incorporated, or their management.
This is Vernon Oakes, and the program is Everything Co-op. Gary, you may not know this, but we've been on the air now almost 10 years. This coming October, we'll celebrate 10 years being on the air, and I've just have a lot of fun talking to people like you about this co-op model and how they got involved in it and what the co-op model does for communities, particularly low-income communities. And the National Co-op Bank has been our financial supporter all of these 10 years. Their mission is to support and be an advocate for America's cooperatives and their members, especially in low-income communities, by providing innovative financial and related services. So they're in it, and they were created in the 80s by the federal government to provide funding for the co-op world, and they just seem to do an excellent job. Have you had an opportunity to work with NCB yet, Gary?
I've not worked directly with NCB. I've met several individuals from NCB, but at this point in my co-op career, I have not worked directly with NCB.
Okay. Maybe you can come back on and tell us whenever you do. Okay. So this ACE, what we were talking about before the break was co-ops for incarcerated people. And they have co-ops in prisons in Puerto Rico, which Jessica Gordon-Emhart has told me about. But they've also have one in Italy, and it's a bakery. And people in the bakery it's a worker co-op, so the members that work there in the bakery are also owners. And some of these members are incarcerated in the prisons, and some of them are out of prison. And one of the things I like about it is when the people that are in prison get out, very few go back. They let 3 to 5% recidivism, where people go back in. Where here in the U.S., you're talking about 60, 70, 80% recidivism. And the reason is they have a family, they have a group, they have meaning when they get out. They have a job, they have worth, they have a say in the business. So I really like co-ops from that example. Now they do have to choose who can be members of the co-op. Okay. But that is just a great way of getting people out of prisons into meaningful work with significant pay, where they don't have a need to go back in or do things that will cause them to go back into prison. And of course, I've had Shy Fresh on, people from Shy Fresh, which was started by 5 black previously incarcerated women, and they're in the food industry too in Chicago, where they create food for institutions like schools. So they started right when COVID started, and they've been highly successful. I'm looking to have them back on. But this whole conversation about prisons and incarcerated people and co-ops and how they can help, but it really gets to what you were talking about earlier, and that's the social responsibility that co-ops are extremely good for anybody that that have had problems in our society, whether it's economic problems, which a lot of blacks and browns and indigenous people have had, or if they've got sideways with the injustice system, then co-ops is a way that they can come out and get meaningful work. So I like the kinds of classes and that you all are having at the institute, and I would really love to be there. I'm not going to be able to make it this year, but you'll be somewhere in North America. Is it every year? Would you?
Yes, the institute happens every year. For instance, last year it was in Vancouver, British Columbia at UBC, University of British Columbia. And then this year it's in Puerto Rico. The last time that it was in Puerto Rico, I believe, was back in 2013. And so next year we're looking at bringing it back to the United States as a location, physical location for the institute.
So when we were talking about getting the education about co-ops in Puerto Rico, do you know what they do in their school systems to get people to understand, young people to understand co-ops?
I don't know firsthand what they do in the school system, but in our previous conversation, I do understand that there is this movement, there is this support from national politicians and the government around youth co-ops. One of the things I did read up on was around a group of young folks, around 40 individuals that, worked with the political representatives to establish a co-op. And this particular co-op was really centered around the youth and the efforts of, lack of summer camps, a lack of opportunities. And so, that also just is, there's a need for that, because that's the next wave of leaders and individuals that's going to have concern for the planet and their communities. So I would like to see more of that, but I don't have the in-depth information about the co-ops as far as in the school systems.
So one of the things that the minimum wage did, it really caused like high school students not to be able to get a job. It made, particularly in black and brown communities, young people unemployment being extremely high. But what can happen in the co-op world is they can go start their own business, okay? And they're not employed, they're owners, okay? And then they get both the salary and the profit. So they can end up with a higher average income, hourly income, because they can share the profit when and if there is a profit. So the co-ops can also come in and play a role for younger people to work. Minimum wage has affected the young people in a very negative kind of way. Okay, so you're vice chair of ACE. So is that where you make your living? They pay you for that?
No, it's a volunteer position. It's volunteer work. A lot of the good work that we do a lot of times don't come with the compensation, but I enjoy it. It's just so gratifying and to be able to do this work and provide opportunities for other cooperators to continue to learn and skill up.
So you look like you eat well. How do you make money to put food on the table?
So I'm a part of the Ajani Group. So there's some money that comes in from projects there, but then also being a business growth consultant, I also work within the community with different organizations, building and connecting what I call, let's build better, broader bridges. How do we uplift our communities? How do we bring individuals together And then so is with really being about the relationships usually evolve into moving the money, and then I make my money as the money's moving.
Okay. So what's the Ajani Group? You mentioned it first.
Yes, the Ajani Group. It's a group of BIPOC work. It's a worker owner co-op. We do education and workforce development trainings. We work with collaborative partners on different projects around the country. Some directly building co-ops, some educating co-ops, and so it consists of a number of individuals from around the country.
So why was it formed?
Johnny, it was formed because we were all in a period of seeking community within the co-op ecosystem. Stephen McDowell and Tia Evans, they came together and were familiar with each other, and then they, started inviting in individuals like Rob McClinton and Mabry Davis, and I came in with Mabry Davis. And so it's a unique skill set of individuals. We have the tech, we have the legal, we have the urban planning and climate and education component with Esther West, who's done work with Dr. Jessica Gordon-Emhart and some research as well. Rob McClinton's again with Small World, Mabry Davis with New West Virginia, formerly Cooperation Appalachia. And then myself and Tia Evans. She has a legal background. She's with NCBA CLUSA as a program director. And Stephen McDowell himself, he's actually running as a Blue Dog for Congress in Virginia with a co-op platform.
So I know several of these people. So like Rob works with us. He's been very helpful. Stephen McDowell has been on the show a couple times. So, yeah, I know several of these folks. I think Mabry Davis may have been on the show for talking about West Virginia. I had somebody on the show talking about West Virginia. Okay. Do you like what you do?
Yes, I love it. It's not like work. It's very gratifying. Having a sports background, being a coach is, you're always looking at how do you build teams? How do you build people up? How do you move towards accomplishing a shared goal, and bringing your talents together to accomplish that goal? And and that's kind of how we did things as Ajani. We really started on the relationships, and that makes it easy. So it's very enjoyable work and very gratifying work.
Okay. So I don't know why Steve didn't invite me, but okay, I'll talk that up to him later. Okay. Can you give us any examples of the people you're working with in Ajani? What kinds of projects that you all work on?
Yeah, so some of the projects that we work on, it's mostly with startup co-ops, and then also co-op curious entrepreneurs, through workshops, sessions, and co-op development and education. We've worked with agencies like NDCC, New West Virginia, MCDC, and then we've also worked within the food sector, worked with marketing and outlooks and strategies for Fat Daddies, which is a New West Virginia, their first co-op, which also goes back to Jessica's work because it's also a story of preventing recidivism, giving an opportunity for someone to own their path forward with dignity and provide for their family and bring in their family. It's a family-based co-op. And then also
I'm sorry, Fat Daddy's got my attention. What do they do?
Oh, they smoke meats. They have sandwiches. They're at different events. So, and it's good food. It's good food and great people.
Okay. Got to find them when I go back home. Okay. So you were getting ready to talk about another project, maybe?
Yeah, so we also work with, going to be doing some work with Texas Rural Cooperative Development Center on some financial trainings as well. And that'll be this summer and fall. And then also working with, back in West Virginia, through New West Virginia, with Mabry Davis, who's with Ajani, West Side Together project, community collaborative project to develop long-term co-op models for economic and community development.
Long-term co-ops. Okay.
Yeah, looking at long-term. I'm sorry, long-term cooperative models.
Okay. No, I got it. I got it. So we're going to take our final break and talking about long-term cooperative models. When we come back, I would like to talk about what do you see the future looks like for co-ops, and I want you to tell people how they can register for the ACE Institute. Okay, but we'll be right back. Please don't touch that dial.
WOL.
So welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oaks. The program is Everything Co-op. I've been having a great conversation with Gary Hampton. We've covered a lot of territory. We've talked about the ACE Institute, which is August the 7th through the 10th in Puerto Rico. And they're all about educating people about this cooperative model. So, Gary, how can people register for this conference?
Yes, so to register for the conference, go to ace.coop, ace.coop, and you will see right at the top of the page on the landing page when you get there that there's the opportunity to go ahead and sign on and join the conference.
How much does it cost for registration?
Right off the top, hold on. I believe the registration is $335, and I will have to confirm that real quick, but I believe it's $335 for the conference.
And that includes I saw banquet and lunches and
banquet and everything. And there's also different options available, and I'll actually clarify that. General admission is $475. I apologize. For members, non-members, it's $575, and then there's 1 day packs. So you can be there Monday or Tuesday Monday and Tuesday for $175, and Tuesday, Wednesday packs are $275, and Wednesday, Thursday is $225. So and then the banquet only is $115. So from $115 to $575 is the actual cost of attendance and participating in ACE.
Okay. And I did see, it may be too late, but I did see where you could apply for scholarships.
Yeah, so there was an opportunity for scholarships. Thanks to NBA CLUSA and their work, we're able to get 20 individuals from the United States and Puerto Rico to serve distressed and underserved communities and Black and Brown communities to Puerto Rico, full stipend scholarships, flight, hotel, and the conference fees as well.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that's something we can do in the future. Last year we were able to get 5 individuals there, and as part of the DEI, and so this year is we were blessed with the opportunity to get the funding for these scholarships.
That includes flight, hotel, and the registration. That covers just about everything. Okay. So we've talked a lot about the education for co-ops and the different sectors, no matter what sector it might be, no matter what geography it may be. When we talked about the different principles, the first principle is open to anybody, regardless of race or gender or politics or religion or anything else. If it's a co-op and operating as a co-op, that co-op is open to anybody. We talked about co-op for incarcerated people. We've talked about co-op for young people, for folks that are in under-resourced communities. Co-ops seem to flourish better when there's problems like the Great Depression or Great Recession or anything that's going on where people need to pull themselves up. So I guess the question becomes, I wanted to look at the future to see what kind of educational needs you might see, or how do you see even co-ops in the future?
So I'll start with the foundation with the educational piece. We have ed.coop, which we're strategizing around how that moves forward and evolves. But
I'm sorry, Gary. I'm sorry, but that's ed.coop. That's
Yes.
like education, ed.coop. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, and so it's a repository for members, but it could really become something even greater as we move forward and look at it, because it could become what I like to refer to as the knowledge commons, as that place for everything in the co-op ecosystem that's related to education, professional and workforce development across the sectors and industries that co-ops are in. And so I think that is a path forward, but we also have to continue. We have to talk more about co-ops. We also have to bring co-ops into our K through 12 institutions, our higher ed institutions, not that as an alternative, but right alongside as we educate and train up individuals around traditional business models. Because co-ops are small businesses, and like, for instance, states like West Virginia, about 98% probably of small businesses, of all businesses are small business. So, is bringing more collective thought around it, more collective action around it, being very intentional about speaking up. And I think one of the pathways is really bringing credit unions in as part of that educational hub or distribution and awareness, because a lot of individuals may not understand that their credit union is most likely a co-op, and so direct facing with the community. So I think those are some of the things that we can do to broaden the awareness and bring more to the educational co-ops. But then is really, like, in particular, the HBCU communities, is bringing that in the fold, because there's an existing ecosystem that we can pair with the co-op ecosystem on a holistic level to really impact communities that really could benefit from the opportunities of having cooperative development at the heart of their community development, and really working together as communities, organizations, nonprofits, government agencies to lift up the communities on a collective and collaborative level through cooperation.
So I was in a meeting with I want to say 7 brothers who were heads of historically black colleges and universities. 7 different colleges and universities was represented. And they were talking about the future in education, educating blacks, and the problems of historically black colleges and universities getting funding to keep them alive and so forth. So I stood up and raised the question about teaching about co-ops and what co-ops are and how co-ops could help historically black colleges and universities. It was like I was talking to the wall. They almost like they had no idea what I was talking about. So my question was it futuristic, and they needed this knowledge bank that you were talking about, this knowledge commons. They needed the backdrop. So you mentioned historically black colleges and university. I know that Tuskegee has some classes because of their agriculture work, but how do you get black colleges and universities, historically black colleges and university, the information that ACE gives out, this education, so that they will even understand the benefits of co-ops to our communities, but also to the community of that particular college or university and those students that go there? How do we get that done?
Yeah, I think that has to be deliberate and intentional. Just to go back to the National Black Cooperative Agenda Conference in Vegas a few months back, is that we had HBCU law schools, and we were speaking about policy and co-ops as a possible restorative and healing component for black communities. So we have to be intentional. We have to continue to build on that. Even to the point of, imagining with the 100 plus HBCUs, if there was a somewhat of a cooperative community development center, a way that really connects the community, brings in these educational pieces, makes the HBCU one of the anchor institutions in local, regional, and national movements, and really connecting with what exists. For instance, an example could be with New West Virginia and Mabry Davis, and having an HBCU there, West Virginia State University Extension, is there's this grassroots movement, there's this institutional opportunity, and together, collectively, there's power, and then is continuing to work and bridge that gap with building that ecosystem. What is the funding? What are the educational paths? And, things like co-op academies, like Mabry Davis is starting this Saturday with New West Virginia. So those are things like just being intentional and coming and connecting with the different movement pieces, the conferences that are there. So we have to, one, be intentional about how we're going to connect and reach out. Two, be intentional about inviting individuals into the space. And three, be intentional about targeting just HBCUs and bringing those extensions, those leadership of those institutions into these spaces and having these conversations. So it needs to be a combination of webinars. It needs to be, grassroots on the ground. And then once we get inside of the HBCU community and ecosystem we got the power of the Greeks, of the fraternities, of entrepreneurs and individuals that are leaders in their communities that can help uplift this work. And one of the things we have to battle and overcome the challenge of the capitalistic mindset of me and I, and understand that the power of co-ops can help you get there faster together. We can move forward and topple all the different systems and challenges and barriers in front of us if we move forward together. And I think there's room for that, and there's some movement around that. There's some conversation around that, and I'm hoping that we can expand on those things here in the near future. So that's my thoughts on how we can do some of those things. And it takes bringing more people to the table and continuing to aggregate those ideas, concepts of what we're doing now, what we can do tomorrow, and what that can look like in the future. And it's up to us.
So if we look at those HBCUs, we look at the churches. They were formed by us moving together, our ancestors moving forward together, taking our little pennies and nickels, pulling the resources together and forming these institutions. And that's what you're saying we still have to do in the future.
Yes. We need to come back and find ourselves, find each other, and trust each other, and then we can be transformative together.
Fantastic, bro. Gary, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. We covered a lot. I'd love to have you back on again. And I would hope to be at ACE next year. Everybody out there, we'll see you next Thursday. Please live cooperatively, and that is moving forward together. Thank you.
WOL News Talk 1450 AM and 95.9 FM 959.